It's not even funny, man. Like, you could go to college with the amount of money that I pretty much just donated to the market to gain the experience and the knowledge that I have.
And you went from zero to funded.
The week was roughly 2 weeks. I think it was 9 trading days with you guys. Like, I don't have that kind of pressure. I just have the pressure on it. You just can't lose X amount of money on this day. And as long as you don't, then you're in the game.
Welcome everybody to another funded trader of Trader Pool. Today, John is with me, a new funded trader with 25K, the flex account as we call it, and already trading in profit, his funded account. So thanks for coming, John. Appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. You know, John, we just talked about it a second ago. It's basically your first evaluation besides the demo account that you played with, that your official evaluation that you took, right?
Yeah, I was happy to see that there was a demo account, and obviously when you look at the records, I didn't really play with it much. I just wanted to kind of see how it was responsive, and that was really about it. And I just figured I'm just going to dive right in and see what the evaluation account will be like, and how a lot of my learning with just being on the platform was actually done in the evaluation account, which is why, like, when you look on my dashboard, you see it was a bit rough in the beginning, because I was testing limits and just wanting to see how responsive it would be, things like that.
Yeah, and I did see, I'm looking at your chart right now, and I'll share it in a second. I do see a lot of ups and downs until you found your rhythm. But that's your first evaluation account, meaning you passed on your first attempt, which is kind of rare because a lot of the times you will have to take like 3, maybe 5 times until you really pass the evaluation and feel comfortable with it, not just by passing it by luck, but actually knowing what you're doing. And you did it on your first attempt. How long did it take you to pass it?
I believe it was roughly 2 weeks. I think it was 9 trading days.
Wow.
That's what it took.
Amazing. And how long you been trading for?
Okay, so my very first trade ever was just after Christmas in 2023. So I had no real knowledge or anything as far as the stock market goes. It was a friend of mine who he was the one who finally got me to take the bait, so to speak. His story in short, is it cool if I share his progress?
Sure.
Just as far as what got me into it. So he's a day trader, he's a scalper. He started with, I want to say, around $2,000, and in the course of several years, that man grew his account and just his money in general to, I want to say, over $1 million.
Wow.
And as far as like how he took the money, his profits, he redirected his money into other business endeavors, which then just grew his profits even more. But in order for him to do that, he was growing his account in through his broker, and he was day trading. And he kept telling me, he was showing me his profits, and I mean, it was nuts. I watched him go from like making $30 to $100 in a day to eventually he was pulling $800-900 in a single trade, having a $5,000 day. I was like, what the heck, man? Like, that's nuts. It takes me over a month to make that kind of money as far as the thousands go, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
It was just like, he started pointing me in the direction of like certain people to watch that he watched this on YouTube, and that's how he learned. He took one of his day traders courses and everything, which for him, he already had experience from years ago, but he didn't really understand what he was doing until he went to those courses. And then he was advising me just to kind of go the same route. You know, in hindsight, I feel like even if I had found like a prop firm like you guys in the beginning, I would have had such a rough journey. Either way, I think I maybe would have been able to save a good chunk of money, because I mean, I lost so much live money. It's not even funny, man. Like, you could go to college with the amount of money that I pretty much just donated to the market in order to gain the experience and the knowledge that I have. But I personally feel I'm still very much in the early evolution stage of my trading journey. But my biggest thing for me, my biggest issue with the live money account was, so I didn't have a 25K account. So I wasn't able to work in a margin account. So I experienced a ton of psychological pressure of being in a cash account, as far as feeling so limited. I only have X amount of money to use. I could make as many trades as I wanted, but if I wanted to actually grow the account, I'd have to just, hunker down and take maybe either just 1, 2, or 3 trades before the entire balance is exhausted. If I remember right, back in 23, your funds actually took 2 days to settle and not just 1. They changed that in, I want to say, the first quarter of 2024.
Yeah.
So I would actually have to just split the account in half. You can only use X amount of money. The whole thing with just starting right out the gate with live money is, my friend advised me. He was like, look, he said, you could trade in a simulator all day, but you're not going to have that actual experience of feeling how it is to lose live money and gain live money. And he's like, that's a key part of the trading. But at the same time, my technical analysis experience, just understanding just basics as far as fundamentals go with stocks, I didn't have any of that. Of course, my first day having live money in the account, I was using Robinhood, that broker. I was in a margin account, and I trucked off the first 3 trades just right then and there in under 30 minutes. Just thinking, yeah, I think I can do this. And I live on 2 trades. I won on one on my third attempt, but not knowing anything and just thinking, all right, I think I got this. Just full blown rookie, so to speak. I hit on my third one though, and I was like, you know what? If I actually take the time to seriously study and start educating myself, I can go somewhere with this. I mean, it's been a rough, now over 2 years. It's been rough, so rough, but a lot of self-discovery, a lot of understanding my weaknesses, where I'm decent, where I have my strengths, but also just understanding what happens to you when you get greedy, and then what happens to you when you're too scared and you're in profit and you just run off and you don't hold on to your winners long enough. Just a lot of the same stepping stones that, pretty much all of us traders go through, especially in the early stages. One of the things is I was long biased. I never had shorted stock until actually with you guys. I remember I got into this Discord. They had their own collection of professional traders, and then they had a bunch of newbies like me who were just trying to learn. And there was a ton of educational resources for me to just dive into. And I'm a very analytical person. I have very sharp pattern recognition skills. So just chart reading, even though I had no experience in the beginning, it didn't take me long at all to just start being able to understand just basic chart setups. And when you look at a chart after a whole day's gone by, you're able to identify okay, there's a cup and handle, there's the inverse head and shoulders, all the bullish patterns versus bearish patterns. I started educating myself more on identifying bullish divergence, hidden bullish and bearish divergence, as far as your use with the MACD and the histograms. I started finding the things that I like to be able to identify. But, when you look at a chart after a trading day has already occurred, everything in hindsight, it's easy to pick out. But then when you're in the moment with real time, watching the chart develop, it's a whole different kind of ball game, especially with the small caps. I noticed over the time of just chart watching and, constantly, actually trading with live money and losing so much of my live money, I would watch the patterns play out. And one of the simple things I noticed was on a really cheap stock, say a stock under $3 that's getting pumped, you might see a pattern starting to develop. And then somebody, some whale just jumps in and just sells a ton of shares, totally messes off the pattern. You know what I mean? You think that it's going to form, and then it doesn't, because, obviously the cheaper stocks are much easier for the price action to be manipulated by retail traders versus the large caps, or even just small cap tickers, but ones that are more expensive, say over $10, $15, $20. I noticed that the patterns will be respected more often. You know what I mean? More than likely, probability a pattern that you're seeing, say a head and shoulders, if you're looking to short, or a cup and handle, the more expensive tickers, and then especially with the large caps, I noticed the patterns tend to be more tend to be respected more often than not, versus like a really cheap ticker that's under $1. It's so easy to they get pumped up, but then I mean it's just so easy to watch the flush. And like in stages, like in my first year of just getting exposure to watching the volatility, I mean I used to just I used to have such crazy anxiety over how fast those tickers would move. Ticker is at 87 cents and it finally works its way up to just about to break the dollar resistance. And as soon as it does, not even half a second later, it jumps, say, 15 cents. And then 5 seconds later, it's back under $1. And it happens like right before 7 a.m. Eastern. The ticker will curl from a dip early in the pre-market and it'll start coming up around 6:45 Eastern time. And then by 7 o'clock, when volume starts pouring in, it'll rocket and then it'll just flush. In my first year, I'd be watching the tickers climb out of the basin. And I was like, man, I don't know if I should get in. And I was skeptical. And, all the signs were showing like, FOMO symptoms, like, yeah, I got to get in this. But by the time I got in, I mean, I was so good at falling off cliffs, man. And then I realized like, if I'm going to try to do better at this, I want to try to get in more in the basin, come up the floor. And so, like in one of the discords I was in, I was watching certain traders that was like their specialty. Dip buying was their specialty. I didn't have enough knowledge or understanding as far as like indicators and all that. And it was like taking everything in all at once. So it's like taking on the entire Bible, the stock trading Bible, so to speak. And trying to do everything, and I just couldn't do it. I knew that it was going to be, like they say, it was going to be a marathon. But just getting the education was going to be a marathon. And it was just going to be constantly just, people always said, just watch the charts. Just set up certain EMA lines that favor your, how you want your chart to look. And my strategies in the market, the way I approach things, like I go off of several different professionals that I've watched. Like for me, I utilize the 9 EMA. I utilize the 5, the 9, the 20, the 60, and the 200 EMA for as far as my lines, alongside VWAP. You know what I mean? As far as for those indicators, because I've seen that, especially in the pre-market, after pumps, like there's certain times on the 1 minute and then the 5-minute chart when like a ticker loses bullish momentum, they will come down to certain EMA lines depending on how strong the ticker is, depending on like how much attention is being devoted to that one ticker. Like when the market's hot and there's like 4 or 5 tickers just running at the same time, volume often gets stretched out multiple directions, or volume will go from one ticker, and then once it starts to dip and another one starts rising right away, all the attention goes to that other ticker, and it'll just start ping-ponging around, bounce around like a ping pong ball. And it's, it was just through the time of constantly watching, which I won't even be watching the charts, I'll watch the scanner, and I'll watch literally just the price action, because that's normally how I choose the tickers I want to go into. I go into the fastest moving ticker, whichever one has the price action moving the fastest. That tells me market sentiment, like, okay, people are paying attention to this ticker. You know what I mean? Like they're not going after the one that's moving like a snail. They're going after the one that's that's booking it. And then, like, say I pull up the chart of a ticker that has really fast price action going on at the time. If I already see that it's already made a good, like, say a 10-15% move, I'm not even interested in trying to get into it. I'm just waiting to see when the volume is going to rotate to another ticker. If, let's say, that the market is hot, when there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean, you said so much stuff and so much. Yeah, you can hear your experience, and it's amazing. This is why I didn't want to interrupt you or anything like that, because you've been in your zone and just shared a lot of the knowledge and experience that you gathered through those last 2 years. And it's incredible to see the shift or the compounding of your experience, because you started with someone that actually helped you, your guide, and supported you and showed you the way in that regards, or the Discord communities, etc. And you went from zero to funded within 2 years. And again, you did mention about the expenses, right? You spend a lot of you lost money in the real market to learn,
Yeah,
basically, to get the experience and the knowledge,
don't
right?
even get me started on how dumb I was, man. But
It's part of
at the end of the day,
part of
I
the
wouldn't
deal.
have it any other way. I had to learn. Sometimes it's you just. I'm one of those knuckleheads. You just you got to learn the hard way. And
Yeah.
I'm you know I'm still learning. Obviously, it's the market's always changing, and one thing I've realized, and I think some people like argue it, but to me, no, each ticker behaves a little different. Like each stock, even though a chart is a chart, each one kind of moves to the beat of its own drum, so to speak. Like small cap tickers, they're like individual people, and some of them go out of business, they get delisted. Some come back, a lot of them don't. But the ones that have stuck around over the past few years, like when they come up or they show up, just from previous train wrecks or previous times where I actually profited, I'm like, all right, I know how this ticker will behave. I know that, if I miss the entry for long, then especially through you guys, I know where to short, or I know if it's safe to short. Like I'm not just going to get blown out the water trying to short at a point where I think that it would be a good time to short. Even with my chart, like my profits are really tiny because I trade scared. I've always traded scared, but every time I get a little too overconfident, I wreck myself. So it's like I feel like I'm allowed only a certain portion of the pie, so to speak, and to not get so greedy. So it's tons of baby steps, man. Tons of baby steps. Tons upon tons.
That's amazing to hear that from you. So, for those of you not familiar, every trader gets his own dashboard. The dashboard will show you your stats, the risk parameters, and you can really understand your progress and look at your equity curve. You can also check your achievements and payouts and customize your view, switch between light mode and dark mode. All right, so that's your evaluation. Again, first evaluation attempt, and you passed it. And you're only trading for 2 years, but the experience and the deep dive that you had those last 2 years is incredible. You can definitely hear that you gathered a lot of knowledge through those 24 months. That's it. There are guys that trading for 5, 6, 7 years and not making it, and you did an amazing run here, John. I got to tell you that. Looking at the chart, let's talk a little bit about that, because you did have two strong dip, right? You had a nice run for the first 2 days, then a dip, then another dip, and then you started to gain back the profits. Tell me about those dips. Actually, three of those that you had.
Yeah, those drawdowns it was me. I was wanting to test the responsiveness of the platform as far as I think I hit the daily pause and the max loss in one day because I wanted to see what would like when I'm in the position, do I get kicked out of it immediately? It was like mess around and find out. I wanted to see, but it wasn't like I got into the trade and I was like, okay, I'm going to deliberately, mess this trade up. It was a genuine attempt to try to short in that position at that time. I don't remember which ticker it was, but I got short squeezed. I was like, all right, I'm not going to average down or to the position or anything. If you're going to squeeze me, then squeeze me pretty much, it's just let's hit this max and see what's going to happen, and it was it was like I said, it was the daily pause and then the max loss. And then I believe I hit the daily pause again. And then on that one, I just walked away and I was like, I'll come back the next day and get my head right. Because a lot of times, like when I lose in a position, which I'm a sore loser, I hate losing. When I end up losing money, I obsess on it and I go back in my head and I don't physically journal things, but I memorize where I went wrong, or I quickly identify like I just relapsed and I did a repeat of not cutting my loss when I should have, not holding to my mental stop loss. I don't use trailing stops. I don't use any of those actual stop losses that you can implement when the market's open. I don't do any of that. I just do everything mental, but I will as far as those specific drawdowns, it was really just to see the responsiveness of the platform. Like even when I did that, I didn't want to do it, but I just wanted to see. But after those mistakes, it was like, I'm thinking about, okay, where did I go wrong? I'm replaying the chart on my head as where I entered. Why did I think that was a good entry in each of those situations when those specific drawdowns on that chart did occur? My prediction, what I was foreseeing was going to happen, it happened. I would have been in profit, say I had a smaller size position, my position size was, say, a lot smaller, then I would have been able to afford a bigger swing. And like that's a lot of the things I took from the previous interviews that I saw of people becoming funded traders was position size is everything. And so the way I trade in a live account is actually very different from how I've had to revise my approach to stay within the rules and regulations of you guys. I've had to adapt my approach so that I can stay in compliance, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure.
And again, I think one of the positions, it was like, I went in too heavy, so of course I was going to get my head knocked off. If I want to last longer, if I'm not willing to cut the trade at say 10 cents in the red, then obviously I can't be going in with a 1,000 share size position. Because if I'm willing to actually go say $0.50, well, with 10,000 shares, that's what, a $10 penny at 50 cents. You're at your max loss for the day.
Yeah.
And if it pops up like on really volatile tickers, which especially like ones that are over $8 that have a pretty good, a 5 to 10, 15 cent spread, in under a second, you're already up negative. If you're going the wrong direction, you're already negative 45 cents. And if you're in a 1,000 share position, a $10 penny, you might as well just walk away or let yourself get knocked out and then come back the next day. You know what I mean? Because you already just messed yourself off on a single trade. So a lot of times that's why my position sizes they vary based on either how confident I am about my trading record for the day, based on my confidence of the position I'm taking on how the ticker is acting. And if I'm like feeling super skittish about it, or I know that the spreads are really big, then I'm going in super tiny, like 5 shares on a $50 stock because it's jumping dollars at a time. You know what I mean? Like there's no point to try to go big, because if you go big and it goes the wrong direction, you're already done. You're done for. So it's super critical that if I want to have more trades for the day, because the buying power isn't the issue, it's the fact that it's a very tight 2% risk management on the day. So again, it's a different psychological pressure for me. But for me, my hunch, I want to say a little over a year ago, was that I knew that if I could not feel the pressure of being in a high performance, where in an account that's more along the lines of a margin account where I can just trade endlessly, so long as I don't,
blow the account,
cross the daily pause with you guys, that relieves a ton of pressure. It's not like when you're in a baseball game and it's like you got three chances, 3 strikes to hit that ball and get on base, and if you don't, then you're done. You know what I mean? That's always the pressure that I felt metaphorically, in a cash account. With you guys, like I don't have that kind of pressure. I just have the pressure. All right, you just can't lose X amount of money on this day, and as long as you don't, then you're in the game. Like, okay, so you lost. Big whoop. You can go back again. You can go back in 10 seconds later. You can go choose a different ticker, but you can do it on that day. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's not okay. I gotta wait till tomorrow. I don't know which stocks are gonna go. I don't know if it's gonna be a multi-day runner on some of these stocks. You just don't know what the next day will bring. You can watch the after hours and everything, but then somebody like me that's already frustrated about having messed up in a cash account, I'm looking at the after hours and then I'm just watching all the action happen. I'm bracing for the next day, but at the same time, I'm like, man, I could have done this, I could have done that. I know I could have got my money back. The constant mind games that go on. Like with you guys, when I finally found you guys, because it was hard finding a prop firm that trades exclusively small caps. And I didn't think there was one out there. Most of the prop firms I was looking into, it's all futures, indices, commodities, large caps only. I was like, man, it's just not really my cup of tea. You know what I mean? I'm a small cap trader, at least for now. Saw the interviews here through Trade the many people are more on the short side, like, I get it. Like, I can see why. And because I've trained so much just for understanding, like, when you can try getting in on when you're playing as a bull, when you're playing long side, like, because of that experience, just thinking opposite as far as the shorts, I mean, it's not as difficult to me because, I've identified the support resistance levels utilizing the daily chart or even the weekly and the monthly. Sometimes you have to, or just the 4 hour chart, just larger time frames. That wasn't self-taught to me. People were telling me about it. This is how you do it. This is how we do it. This is how we identify, where to get in, where the ticker could go at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a lot to say more than what you already said. You touched literally every point that I wanted to cover with you as well. I do see that you, like you said, short bias to the fullest. Trading those small caps is amazing. I'm impressed. I gotta tell you, 73% on the success rate, which is huge. Although your risk reward, I would work on that a little bit just to give you a little bit more cushion. But besides that,
Yeah, most definitely.
yeah, numbers are very good. Yeah, John, I guess this is it for this interview for sure. You definitely shared a lot of your knowledge and experience, and I appreciate that. And I'm sure the guys at home that just watch it will feel the same way. And if you want to join us, guys, go to tradeapool.com. And I wish you a lot of success, John. I already saw that you are up by almost $400 on your funded account. So I'm sure you'll do
it's
great.
tiny. I'm really cautious because I mean it's for real now. You know what I mean? Like I take it very seriously. But I mean I lived and breathed stocks for the past couple of years, and I think sometimes for people like who have taken 5, 8, 10 years on their journey, I mean it's because they're living life. They've got 1,000 things going on, and I'm not saying I don't because I do. I have current position of employment where like I'm mobile. I'm doing mobile deliveries. My schedule is mine. I'm watching charts anytime and every time I'm able to. I'm watching the market. I'm watching what people are talking about in the discourse. I'm listening to the YouTube videos of you guys. I'm constantly like I'm working, but I have the flexibility to have quote unquote free time at the same time to where I can just learn and gather other people's insights and learn from myself. And again, I chart watch, man. That's literally what it is. Like, and I never stop. Like I'm on camera with you right now, but it's right next to my little trading station. I got my laptop and 2 monitors. So in the corner of my eye, I got my scanner and everything. Which, by the way, just like many people who are trading on small caps, I look at the top 20% gainers of the day. Those are the tickers I'm looking at. Yeah. Because a lot of times, especially if I'm going long, if I'm trying to trade long, which with you guys I'm not, but when I was, I always look for the ones at the bottom. I look at the ones that start showing up because that tells me, that like this one might be getting pumped with the catalyst or it might not. You know what I mean? But either way, it showed up. What is happening to it? Is it moving up the ranks? Is it staying put? Is it just showing up, disappearing? Like I'm always watching for that kind of stuff because those are all signs. Those are all cues of potential positions to take for profit. It's there. But again, for me, it's been a real struggle to balance just, having a social life, devoting the, energy to being in a relationship, having a significant other, still working, still doing that. But, like my friend knew that I had this potential to be able to do well in this. I mean, pretty much any free moments I have, like stocks is where it's at. Even somebody like me, that's why I'm in a Discord where there's a community of traders that do understand that. And they can explain like, hey, there's a 13G that just got filed. That's part of why this is running up. Or there's overhead. That's why there's resistance at such and such level. What does that mean, overhead? Asking them about their trading strategy. Like, what does such and such thing stand for? What do they look for with their approach in the market? Things like that. I utilize the resources that are out there for everybody. You don't have to do this alone. You know what I mean? Like it's everywhere. The education, you don't have to get it online with a certain trader and then buy their courses. You don't have to do that, but it's there. And ultimately to me, like for those that genuinely want to be on the road of success for this and have the same kind of gut feeling like I do, that I know I can eventually make this either my primary source of income or a good chunk of my income, you got to put the time and the energy. And you got to be willing to suffer, man. It's not like this is the end of the road and I'm right there and we're good for the rest of my life. Like, no, this is a milestone for me, most definitely. This
Part of the journey.
Accomplishing what I've accomplished through you guys is just, for me, it's proof is in the pudding. Like, I have this hunch that if I don't trade in a cash account, my performance will be better. And what I've been able to do for myself and to prove to myself is exactly what you see on those charts. Obviously, I take losses. Obviously, I take hits. Even right now, as far as because I'm choosing to short primarily with your platform, there's certain things like, what do I do with when I end up red, when the trade goes against me? And the one thing that's been formulating in my head, strategy-wise anyway, is that, because I enter with only a starter that's really small, if my starter takes me in a profit and I surpass the 10-cent requirement with you guys, then I'll just take that starter and then I'll close the position. And a lot of times for me, shorting, like, I look to short when the share price is at least 10 cents away from the 9 EMA. Even better if it's over 10 cents away from the 5 EMA. So then I can get the dip. I can just scalp the dip. I don't care about sitting and waiting for it to go to VWAP, especially on the top gainers. Like, you could totally miss your scalp and then end up, $300 in the red because you just wanted to buy and hold. I get overconfident thinking that I'm going to be all right. I get greedy and then I get smacked upside the head for it. I pay for it every time. And even though it's like I've done it thousands of times, I shouldn't do it. Unfortunately, we're also creatures of habit, which could also be creatures of bad habit. And, unfortunately for me, being in a losing trade, I instinctively want to hang on. So because I identify that weakness in myself, then it's like, all right, how can I minimize the loss then? So if I'm in a losing trade, because I didn't go in super crazy in the beginning, I'd say I went with 100 shares, $1 penny, and you still got, on a 25K account, say you have like, $20,000 still available. You still have the hunch that it's definitely going to reach a limit. It's showing signs of exhaustion. All right, then when you do see it finally starting to flush, and say you're down $50, so you're down 50 cents, average down because you know that it's going in your favor. And so I'll either add into it, split the entry in half, and then it continues going down, then I even heavier, just to not to get profit to where it counts for the growth of the account, but so that I can escape. Yep. So it'll either be a much smaller loss or it'll be a couple cents in profit, which doesn't count for the account, but I didn't lose money on the account either.
Yeah.
Because I scaled in, I came in super heavy when the ticker finally did go in the direction that I was anticipating it to go when I got in too early.
Alrighty, John. Incredible talk. I think you should come on our live stream as well and share your story for sure. I really do. I'm sure the guys would love to hear you a little bit more. But this one we will finish here. Again, thanks so much for coming. And of course, guys, go check us out at tradeapool.com. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Thank you for having me. Much appreciated.
Appreciate it.